Alright, in this video I'll be adding a second power supply to my mining rig. For this I got a dual PSU adapter from Amazon. I'll throw links to everything in the description. I don't know. There's no best but better. I'm not sure that's a quality statement, but it's from China, so maybe it's good. I don't know. It seems to work though. Most of these jumpers are pretty much the same. They have 3 ends. 2 are female ends and 1's male. The male end goes straight into the motherboard, so you're not going to plug either of your PSUs into the motherboard. And I'll give you an example here. This 750 is going to be my auxiliary power, so it's going to power 2 GPUs. So I'm going to plug this one into the female end with just the 2 wires coming out, and all those tell it to do is to turn on. So those are really just acting like jumpers. And then the other one will go into the primary PSU that's also powering the CPU. A couple other things I got quickly are these dual Molex to 6-pin. For some of my very low power cards, like the 1660 Ti and the 1660 Super, I am using Molex because I have a whole bunch of Molex connectors for the PSUs, and I'm really not using them for anything else. The dual Molex to 6-pin come in a 3-pack, so they're actually quite cheap, and those are from Comeep. And then I also got these 8-pin to dual 8-pin splitters from Comeep as well, all through Amazon. One thing I noticed, if you're in Canada, you should go to the American Amazon site and just pay the difference. I found it was cheaper. So I removed the 1660s off my larger mining rig, so that one's all 3070s now. And I'm going to put these 2 1660 Supers onto this mining rig here once I hook up the power supply unit. So I'm going to remove the 24-pin motherboard cable from the motherboard, and then I'll get everything hooked up, and I will plug the male end of this dual PSU splitter into the motherboard. So now that that's plugged into the motherboard, I'm just going to take the primary power supply unit, the one that's powering the CPU. I'll plug that into the splitter. And then just like I did at the beginning of the video, I'll take the other end with just the 2 cables attached to it, and I'll plug that into my secondary PSU. And one thing to note, you should power both your risers and your GPU off the same PSU, so you don't want those 2 things split. So I'll turn on the primary power supply first, then the secondary power supply, and then with a little bit of luck, everything will boot right up. And you can see that that fired right up as soon as I hit the on-off switch. So that 1660 Super and that 1660 Ti are plugged into the 750 watt PSU. So you can see that new 1660 Super there. Those are the settings I use when it has Hynix memory. Basically, you need to dump the memory clock all the way down to -502. Kind of counterintuitive. Anyway, I ran a benchmark. It was successful, so I added another GPU to the mix, which was also a 1660 Super. So now I have 3 GPUs on the 1 power supply unit. So 2 1660 Supers, and then this 1660 Ti. And then on the main power supply, I have the 3060, these 2 1660 Ti's, and obviously the motherboard, CPU, everything else will be powered off that. I do find that this Gigabyte 1660 Ti runs really hot compared to the other ones, so I've increased the fan speed on the 2 beside it in an attempt to keep it a little bit cooler. I've also noticed that the fans for the PSUs aren't constantly spinning anymore. Now that I've sort of balanced out the power load, this 850 used to spin basically 24/7, and now that it's balanced a bit, it's not quite as bad. So you can see with everything mining, it's right around 575 watts. And with 1600 watts of power, obviously I have plenty of room to expand. And you can also see I've got 3 GPUs on the 1-to-4 splitter. I am going to try and get a 4th one in there. I'm not sure how stable this will be because this motherboard has been problematic. but I have obviously lots of room to expand on those 2 PSUs. And that's what everything looks like. The 1660 Ti and Super gets about 30 mega hash. Obviously the 3060 is at about 48. So for the 575 watts, I'm getting about 200 mega hash, which is just a little bit under $20 Canadian a day at the time the video was filmed. And now that I've moved things around, I do have one empty PCIe lane here as well, and obviously I'm going to look to add another GPU to this one because this one's also on dual PSUs and there's 2000 watts of power. So now that I've moved everything around, I can look for 2 more GPUs before I need to buy a new motherboard and CPU. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.